In this video, we'll talk about the PX Backup Integrated Data Protection offering on IBM Cloud Kubernetes Service via the IBM Cloud Catalog. To deploy the PX Backup for Kubernetes offering, navigate to the IBM Cloud Catalog, search for either Portworx or PX Backup for Kubernetes. The landing page for the catalog offering has information around the cost of the service, and it also helps you deploy PX backup on your existing IKS cluster. All you need to provide is your IBM Cloud API key, and then it automatically shows you a list of all the different IKS clusters in your environment. You can specify the namespace that you want to deploy all the PX backup components in, and you can specify the name of the storage class. Once you have selected all of these different settings, all you need to do is create, and it will take 5 or 10 minutes to deploy all the components and have a data protection solution ready for your containers in your IKS cluster. So let's see how we can leverage this UI to create or perform backup and restore operations. The first thing that a user needs to do is add cloud accounts. So associating our IBM Cloud account and then configuring an IBM Cloud Object Storage bucket as one of the backup locations. Next, what we can do is configure schedule policies. So these are schedule policies that can be associated with one or multiple backup jobs. And you can configure these policies on a periodic, daily, monthly, or a weekly basis. So let's create a simple daily backup policy. Let's select the daily option, and you can specify the time of the day during which the backup job should be triggered. You can specify how many backup snapshots you want to retain in your backup location, which is our Cloud Object Storage bucket in this demo. Once you have configured all of these different settings, you can hit create, and then just to show you an example for a monthly backup policy or a monthly schedule policy, we'll create a second schedule policy, give it a simple name, specify monthly, and then select the day of the month and then time of the day at which the backup job should be triggered. And again, similarly, you can specify how many snapshots you want to retain. Once you have configured schedule policies, users can also choose to configure additional rules. So these are pre and post backup scripts that you can specify to ensure that your backups are application consistent. So you can specify these here and use it across your different backup jobs. Now let's move on to actually creating a backup job for an application that's running in my IKS cluster. So we have a simple e-commerce application called SockShop running in its own namespace, and it has different kinds of Kubernetes objects like deployments, secrets, services, persistent volumes, and persistent volume claims that are all a part of that simple cloud native application. PX Backup understands all of these different constructs and makes sure enables the user to capture the whole state of the application rather than just copying data. Let's create a backup job. We can give it a simple name and then specify the backup location, which in this case is the IBM Cloud Object Storage bucket. We can have this backup job triggered at a scheduled policy that we have already created, or we can choose to create this backup job so it's an on-demand backup job as well. It will automatically show you a list of all the different Kubernetes objects that will be part of this backup job. And again, this is just to make sure that you capture the whole state of the application. Let's select the on-demand option or the now option and create this backup job. At this point, PX Backup talks to the Kubernetes cluster and copies over the data, the metadata, and all the different Kubernetes objects and stores them in your backup location. Once you have a successful backup job, we can go ahead and look at the different details. So we can list all the different Kubernetes objects that were part of the backup operation and all the different persistent volumes that were backed up as well. At this point, let's go to the e-commerce website and log in as a demo user. We'll perform a couple of operations just to generate some data. So we'll select a couple of socks and add them to our cart. Once we have our shopping cart ready to go, we'll place an order, and we can see that an order has been generated and the socks have been shipped. So again, this just adds a couple of entries to our backend database. Next, in addition to the orders table, we also want to generate something in the shopping cart. So we'll add a couple of items in the shopping cart. So again, a different backend database is used for maintaining the shopping cart. So if I am an organization running this e-commerce application, I want to capture the whole state. I want to capture all the databases that are involved. I want to capture all the Kubernetes objects that are involved. So let's leverage PX backup and create another backup job which captures the latest changes that we have made inside the application. So the order that was placed, the couple of things that were added to the shopping cart. So we'll give it a simple name that specifies what we are doing. So a backup job where we have one order and two things in the shopping cart. We'll select the backup location. And then again, since we want immediate results, we don't want to wait for the schedule. We'll create an on-demand or a now snapshot. The same process is followed all over again, where it goes and talks to your Kubernetes clusters and copies all the data, metadata, and objects over to your object storage location. Once the backup job succeeds, we can look at more details. And now that we have some data that we can restore, let's go to the CLI and use kubectl to delete the application completely. So let me just bring over my CLI interface, like my terminal. And what we'll do is we'll just delete everything that was deployed as part of the YAML file. So as you can see, it deletes the namespace, deletes the persistent volumes, deletes the different deployment and service objects that were created as part of the application. PX backup allows you to restore an application as a whole. But again, if you accidentally deleted a deployment object or a service object, you can restore individual Kubernetes objects as well. As you can see, there are no objects remaining inside the namespace. So we'll come back to the PX backup UI and we'll select the latest backup job and perform a restore operation. We have to give it a simple name. So again, we'll give it restore, again, the same thing, like one order and two in cart. We can select the same Kubernetes cluster, IKS cluster, or a different IKS cluster based on our use case. And I can choose to restore it in the same location. So it will create the namespace and all the Kubernetes objects, basically replacing anything that might be staying back. Or I can choose to select only a few specific objects and deploy it or restore it to a new location. Since we have deleted the whole application as a whole, we'll restore it again as a whole entity and initiate that restore operation. We'll come back to the CLI and issue a watch command on our namespace. As you can see, all the different pods that were part of deployments are already in the creating and running state. So PX backup immediately spoke to our Kubernetes cluster, fetched the data from the object storage bucket, and restore your application as is inside your Kubernetes cluster. We can see that all the different services, deployments, replica sets, and pods that were originally part of our application are restored now. And we can also look at persistent volume claims and see that those have been recreated as well. Now that we verified that all the Kubernetes objects are back as they should be, let's also navigate to the e-commerce website and verify that from a user perspective, all the application data is still there. So we log in using the same user credentials and navigate to the shopping cart and the account tab to verify that the couple of socks that existed in the shopping cart and the order that was originally placed is still there. As you can see, the application data exists and the application was successfully restored by PX backup. This means that in the future, if you have an accidental deletion or if you have a cloud region outage or any of these scenarios, you can use PX backup to restore your application to its previously known good state. Until next time, thanks for watching.